Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Astro Masterclass. I'm so happy to be sitting down today with Jenn Zahrt, whom I've met through Izar, the Cafe Clutch of Izar. It was, I think, in the first half of the year, and it was some kind of digital place where, with other astrologers from all around the world, we would gather for a couple of hours, a couple of times in the month, and we would talk about our favorite subject. And you have guessed it, it is astrology. So thank you so much, Jenn, for accepting my invitation. How are you
Thank you for having
in that
me.
part of the world?
I am just waking up. I know we have quite a time zone difference. I'm on the west coast of the United States. But I'm really enjoying the fall weather and the leaves turning. One of the quiet joys of the day is just paying attention to the way that nature's responding to the current position of the earth.
Yeah, so beautiful. Really, the Scorpio season with all its manifestation of colors.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's my sign.
Hey.
My son's, I mean. So let's start. I have a few questions. We all know now, if you follow this podcast, that I have about 12 questions. So we'll start and we will then go from there. So
Yeah.
Jenn, could you present yourself, say a little bit about what you do?
So I'm Jenn Zahrt, and sometimes people call me Dr. Jen. In 2012, I completed a PhD at UC Berkeley in German on the subject of astrological imagination in German culture in the early 20th century before the rise of Nazi fascism. And that is, one of the sort of hinge points for my career. But when I was just getting interested in astrology, I knew that I was going to be doing something with publishing, something with books,
Mm.
and a lot of stuff with research. So I began to publish books in 2014, and I run Revelor Press. I also co-run Sophia Center Press with Nick Campion in Wales. And then in 2021, I founded this astrological research library that I'm sitting in right now
Mm.
called the Celestial Arts Education Library, or Cayley Institute.
Mm.
And it's a place that kind of answers an itch that I had when I was doing my PhD. So it's like I really wanted a place where I could go and see all the books at once. And so I couldn't find it. Philip Graves is my colleague also in Wales who has a massive library of astrology books, and we're in a kind of, informal consortium of sorts. But I just had to build it because I needed to use it and I want everyone to use it. So that's
Yeah,
sort of, my mission in life.
it's so beautiful to have to see all those books there and think about all of them trying to thread astrology, each one in its own way.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, it's like a dream place, especially for me with my Gemini moon.
There you go. Yeah, you just go nuts in here. It's so much fun to
Yeah,
just have books you've never even thought of existing, popping out and presenting a new kind of astrology at you. And you're like, oh my gosh, my mind is blown. Like
yeah,
you might not use it, but you'd
yeah,
explore it, you know?
it's so crazy the type of books that englobe a little bit of astrology or a lot of astrology, but there are apps that are absolutely different from what you would think an astrology book could be.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's really amazing. And so could you give us your big three? I know that it's of course astrology, it's not only about that at
Yeah,
all,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
when you meet someone, maybe that's the first conversations you have with someone about astrology. So
Right. Whenever I'm at conferences, I never put that on my name tag. They're always like, put your rising
yeah,
sun moon on your
they
name
have
tag. And
a
I'm
little
like, my secondary progressed sun's in Scorpio. I don't think I'm going to be doing that. Although I will say Scorpios have the most tattoos identifying themselves as Scorpio. Like that's the most
mm,
tattooed sign. Like, look at my
oh,
scorpion. I'm a
I
Scorpio. It's
have
like, wait a
none.
minute. You're supposed to be secret about that. Um, so I have Aquarius rising and I love it. And I have the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries. So I'm a full moon and I love
Mhm.
that too. But if I were to like condense myself into a one phrase, it would be
Yeah.
jet fuel. Jet fuel. Just air and fire.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
accelerate everything I touch. People are like, "How do you do it all?" And I'm like, "I don't know. It's just jet fuel. How does a jet fuel make jet fly? It just does it, you know?"
Where is your
So,
Mars?
on my midheaven, and you can see my glasses have a little razor blade.
Oh,
Cut out.
okay.
That's my little like Mars midheaven conjunction right there. Like, it's right there. It takes all the edge off a little bit, you know.
And in what sign?
Sag.
Okay, fire. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
jet fuel, easy. Yeah, but
Um,
I love
yeah,
leaning into like when I learned that I had Aquarius rising. I was one of those kids in school, like if I were on Gordon White's show, like, were you a weird kid? Absolutely. And I would wear the kinds of things that would make my parents get really revolted that I was their child. Like, oh my God, what is she wearing to school? And I'm like, yeah, but I have Aquarius rising. I have to
yeah.
turn it up to 11,
Of course, that explains everything.
you know? Like, I want to have Aquarius rising. I want to wear weird stuff. I didn't wear jeans in high school for 3 years straight. And the day I went to school and wore jeans, which everybody wore every day, they
Yeah.
were like, oh my God, Jenn Zart's wearing jeans. Like, that's an Aquarius rising. You get people to
Yeah,
talk about you wearing
absolutely.
jeans, you know? So anyway,
So, how would you define your own practice of astrology?
maximalist.
Mm,
So because I spend every day here at Kaylee and I'm confronted with various astrologies all time, like all the time, it's just kind of endless and dizzying. I'll find evidence of kind of strands of practice where I'm like, oh, I can see how that can be used. I can see how that can be used. And so I'll add that to the toolkit. And will I use it every time? No, but I know it's there now and I can't not know that. And then I can't get it out of my head either. So I think, if you were to try to maybe make it like art history, I'd be a Baroque astrologer. Like I have just so
yeah.
many different kinds of ornaments in there and just tools and approaches. And so I
Mm,
mainly practice with classical technique and really through the lens of maybe a Benatti with a bit of Marinus on top,
hmm.
because I really appreciate the way that they see the chart as an entire life world and not just the map of one person.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. When you say Baroque, that I can see you in a kind of Louis XIV, so Louis XIV kind of of apparel and astrology apparel.
yeah, it'd be
Uh,
like a very misshapen pearl, kind of lumpy, a little bit awkward, doesn't quite fit your jewelry, but it's cool. It's weird.
yeah.
Like a cabinet of curiosity. When I was studying
Hmm?
the history of astrology, I really
I love
appreciated
those.
that moment of pre-Enlightenment science that would just collect all the weird examples,
Mhm.
you know? And so I think that's the astrology I like is like the weird example. Like, what was that person trying to do?
Mhm.
What zodiac proposed? Like, what rulership scheme did they propose? How does that work? So
Yeah.
it's not about trying to prove like this is the transmission.
Mhm.
That's definitely at a part of it, but it's also trying to collect all the weird bits too, you
Mm.
know?
Yeah, the thing that is out of uh, everything that it was already done or made at that time, or something that leaps you, that puts you outside of mainstream ideas about astrology also. Mm.
Yeah, very much.
So, how did you become a professional astrology? What was your journey?
That was a very long journey, actually. So I fell in love with astrology when I was 15. I was studying German in high school and
Mm.
came back to class one day just in tears. Like I got grounded. I didn't know that Saturn was conjoining my moon, but I was just a mess. I come
Yeah.
to my teacher and I'm just so sad. And he goes, "Oh, okay. What day were you born? What time and where?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know." Like, so I went and got the information and gave it to him. And the next day he handed me this piece of paper. It was like a map. And he goes, "Can you go to Powell's Books in Portland?" And I said, yeah, that's like one of the only places I can go while I'm grounded." And he goes, "Okay, well, get these books. And if you have questions, let me know." And that was it.
Right.
And I was like, what's going on here? So I go to Powell's, I get these astrology books. I got
So
Alan Oken's
Aquarius.
Complete Astrology. Yeah, right. I was like, huh. And so basically just started learning astrology because I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. I had no social life at that point. They took my computer away, so I couldn't go back onto AOL chat rooms because that's how old I am. And so I just started learning astrology and I was in. I was fully in because then I realized
Mm.
like once I'd got through most of Alan Oken's Complete Astrology, which was my first major kind of textbook, I'd say, I had to calculate charts by hand. So
Mm.
I was using the Koch house system because that was the one that, my teacher recommended. And so basically I got to the point where I discovered transits and I saw that Saturn was transiting my moon. And he's like, yeah, in 6 months it'll be off your moon. And I was like, that's like how long I've been grounded for. Everybody always wants to know what it's for. I'm not telling that story in public, but it wasn't that bad. It's actually a silly story, but here we go.
Okay,
Like, keep it
okay.
a mystery, keep it a mystery. But
Yes.
anyway, so like then I became this astrologer and I'm like, okay, well, when I go to college, I want to study astrology. And he's like, you can't do
Uh-huh.
that. And I'm like, why? And he's like, because it's not considered official knowledge. And I'm
Mm,
like, why? So my whole like energy was like, this is absurd. We need to make it legitimate. And so then that just kicked off everything. But I didn't see a client. So that was in the mid 90s, right?
yeah.
I didn't see a client for money until 2015.
Mm,
So I was studying astrology
yeah.
from the mid 90s, like it was basically 19 years until I finally actually hung my shingle to see clients. And I think that's because my academic journey was complete and I could kind of come out. Because when
Yeah.
you're in academia and you say
Yeah.
things like, I
It's
have
difficult.
a
Yeah.
practice, and they're like,
Mm,
oh, you're kind of a hocus pocus person. And it's
yeah.
like, no, actually, you don't know what you're criticizing. And that's kind of why I'm here, because I'm trying to show you why you don't know what you're criticizing. And you should learn about it before you criticize it, because that's not scientific, right?
Yeah.
So it took a long time. And a
Yeah.
lot of people think I've been seeing people since I started. No, I took 19 years to learn before I ever sat in front of someone for money.
Hmm. Well, here in France, it's not the academia world. Well, it is, but even before that, when you tell someone that you are an astrologer, well, it's already yeah, a little bit hocus pocus. Exactly.
Yeah, right. Right, because I mean they think about the newspaper column and they're like, well, that's not really true. And it's like, well, they can explain why that doesn't work for you,
Yeah.
you
But
know.
then again, they will, what are you talking about? I understand the thing. I tried. I
Yeah, yeah,
tried to
yeah.
do that, but
Sure.
it's too
Well, I
much.
think, yeah, it is missing from our education system. People just aren't
Yeah,
taught at an early age that you can know these things. This is a way of
of
knowing,
course.
you know.
It would be
Maybe Waldorf education kind of Trojan horses
yeah,
it a little bit,
yeah,
but
I think so, a little bit, or at least
yeah.
yeah. Um, so do you stay informed about developments, revivals in the field of astrology? And do you think it's important for astrologers to do so, to
Yeah,
continue to study, to gather
absolutely.
knowledge?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
everyone who is considering to, or everyone who considers themselves to be a professional astrologer should think about continuing education.
yeah,
Most other professions have this continuing education
absolutely.
requirement. Like if you want to stay in real estate, for example, you have to
Yeah.
go back to school for 90 sections or whatever and get a little class and re-up on your knowledge of the state
Mm,
of the art of that process. And I think with astrology, oftentimes what can happen is we really get very attached to maybe our first teacher and our
mm,
first way of doing astrology, and then it
yeah.
just barrels on without any input from other things. And so then you get kind of ossified and you're not
Mm,
really aware of what can be changed and what can be added and enhanced. And so there's twofold, right? Because there's nothing wrong with that. If you really resonate with the branch of astrology that you landed on, that's fine. But I think it's important as a professional to be aware of the other
yeah.
practices, and that's where that distinction comes in, is like, hey, I know that you're doing that and I don't do that, and that's okay. I'm not going to tear you down. I'm
Hmm.
just going to also not do it, right? But I'm
Yeah.
not going to also not know about how to do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's about opening yourself to something else and see if it resonates or not. But it's
Yeah.
about knowing, about acknowledging also other types of astrology. And yeah.
Yeah, so I'm all again with that maximalism. I love tracking how astrology trends come and go through
Yeah.
the years and seeing how, oh man, Uranian astrology hasn't really been top of mind for quite some time. I bet that's going to come back now.
Yeah.
Like once we really get our handle on the cosmology of what they were trying to say, this whole fake planet question will clear up and people will go bonkers for it.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And what you said about staying with what your first teacher told you, teached you.
Hmm.
Um, uh, it's funny because I have Jupiter in Aries in the ninth house, and I always wanted to learn first and then go to a teacher
Oh,
because
cool.
yeah, I always had this idea with everything, not only astrology. Well, everything that I could do so because there are things in school that I couldn't do.
Sure, sure.
But the idea of arriving at being in front of a teacher and accepting everything that he's telling me, I was not really keen to do so. So I
Mhm.
always thought that I needed to know a little bit first so that I
Hmm.
could question what it was going to be, um,
Yeah.
what he was going to tell me. And
Sure,
that's
sure.
how I always did. So yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so inherently skeptical and questioning, which I think is so fundamental, you know.
yeah. That doesn't mean I don't
Um,
appreciate, of course I do, what they are telling me, but it's always, let me, it's my little bit of Scorpio, okay, also.
sure, sure. I mean, I was with my first teacher for so many years, like over 10 years, you know, and even my heart for always, right? I mean, he's just a very important person to me. But I began learning about classical techniques midway through, and he had been a humanistic astrologer. So I cut my
Mm,
teeth on humanistic astrology.
yeah,
And that was
okay.
really good for a long time. And
Mm,
then I went to a Sophia Center seminar. They did this thing called the Roadshow. They used to take, like, it was Nick Campion, Bernadette Brady, and Darylyn Gunsberg, and they'd go to different
mm,
cities and sort of teach what they teach in the MA program, recruiting students to come to the MA. So I thought this was the opportunity of a lifetime because I really loved Nick. And I was like, I'm going to go meet Nick Campion for the first time in my whole life. This is amazing.
yeah, it's
And I get
amazing.
there, and Bernadette drops this lecture
Yeah.
on triplicity rulers of the houses that completely breaks my brain.
Mm,
And I'm like, okay, well, not only have I wanted to get an MA in astrology forever and I'm going to take their program no matter what, that's not the question. But then I was like, now I need to learn a whole new kind of astrology.
mm,
So I landed with Rod Susskind in South Africa and took his class. So he's got a Rod Susskind School of Astrology. He's actually going to be doing a thing for ESAR on primary directions, so that's going to be fun. But he like really put it together for me, right? Like he really was able to systematically show me the ropes of classical techniques, not with any one thing in mind. It wasn't Hellenistic only or,
mm,
Marinus only. It was very heavily influenced by Marinus, who modernized a lot of the medieval techniques. But it just allowed me to sort of wrap my head around how to be in command of
mm,
being a sort of comprehensive astrologer in ways that my first teacher, like, he was not going to be able to do that because his limit was he's stuck in the humanistic and mundane camp. And that's what I
yeah.
was learning from him.
Mm,
So,
mm.
yeah.
So this question is goes through a little bit of
Yeah.
what you started. Are there any astrologers or books that have particularly influenced your work? Which ones and
Yeah.
why?
So I'll start that to answer that question. So I have a podcast of my own called Within Orb where I ask other astrologers about books that have changed their life. And I was on episode 39 and flipped the script with my producer interviewing me. And at that time, I answered with Nicholas Smuts's Fertility Astrology, Jane Ritter Patrick's Handbook of Medical Astrology, and
Mm,
Michael Myers' Handbook of Humanistic Astrology. But
oh,
today, for you, because those books are important and you can hear
yeah.
more about that on there. But today, I want to say, like, the late Jeffrey Cornelius's Moment of Astrology is
Yes.
a book that will change your life. Like,
Mm,
if you read that book and you haven't yet, there is a before and an after.
mhm,
It really does throw down a gauntlet for this is going to completely revolutionize how you see what astrology is at a
mhm,
philosophical core.
yeah.
And it will liberate you because it talks about reading wrong charts correctly.
Mhm,
And I think that's a really important thing for people who are doing this kind of work to do also because when science critiques astrology, it's mad at it because it's not 100% accurate. And then you turn back and you go, well, what science is 100% accurate? Even the best predictive statistics are like about 80% at the best,
mm,
right? So there's a margin. What do you do with that margin? What do you do with astrology when it breaks? And Jeffrey answers that question in a very beautiful and gentle way. And I
yeah.
think that if I were to create kind of a accreditation program, I would be
Yeah.
like, if you haven't read that book, you can't pass this class, you know,
Mm.
because it's really important to have that
Yeah.
awareness and also that foundational philosophical engagement with what you're even doing when you're reading
Mhm.
astrologically.
I haven't yet read it because I only bought it 2 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh.
So it's there in my
Is it
office.
translated into French,
No,
perhaps?
no,
Okay. Okay,
no,
cool.
no. I bought it in English.
Yeah.
But
No, it'll
yeah,
change your
I'm
life. Get ready. Get
just
ready.
like maybe the book by Richard Tarnas also blew my mind.
Yeah.
In another, maybe it's
Yeah.
another type of,
Yeah. But
but
the one that
yeah,
started it all, the one that made me fall in
mm,
love with astrology and dedicate my life to it at the small age of 15, the one that where I knew what I
yeah,
would, I've turned into what I had this vision of when I read this book. I read The Great Year by Nick Campion, and
okay.
it changed everything. I
I
was
don't
like, I
have
need
that
to,
one. I have those
it's,
about the
it's
history.
out of print, but actually,
Oh,
so here's the
okay.
funny story. I read it an entire secondary progressed lunation cycle ago And right now I'm typesetting it to bring it out in a second edition. So it's like a
Okay.
full circle
Yeah,
moment. It's really
absolutely.
exciting for me. I
Mm,
actually went, I was like, Nick, can I do this? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, thanks. And it's like, because I
yeah.
wanted to actually be in charge of that, Ouroboros, you could say, of this like
Yeah.
capstone, like, this book was the one that inspired me to become who I am. And now I get
Mm,
to actually have a role in shaping it for others,
a
going
special
forward.
place.
Yeah, exactly. But it is about the history of astrology in the context of millennial thinking and
Wow.
how it's been cast aside, and humans have this desire to kind of be in control of the future, right? And we have this
Mm,
kind of desire to somehow get a grip on it some. And so I just think it's another great book to read. So
mm, yeah. Um, what other types of knowledge inform and nourish your astrological practice, if you have so? And do you think that's a major key element for any astrologer who wants to develop their approach and practice of astrology?
yeah, I would
Um,
say the quick answer to that would be critical theory and post-structuralist thought, because when you're looking at a chart and you're assuming what you know as self to be,
mm,
if you question what selfhood is, then maybe you get a little bit deeper into what you're doing when you're reading a chart. So you have to go into those avenues of thought of thinking, if the self is socially constructed, how do we then interpret chart elements? Right? So we're thinking about philosophy, critical theory, various other
yeah.
ways of thinking the world that aren't necessarily in astrology, but
Mm,
underneath it somehow.
mm,
Even though I do think
yeah,
astrology is also
psychology.
in everything.
Mm.
Not so much psychology for me per se,
Oh,
because that's
okay.
not the approach I take with people.
Hmm.
But
For me,
yeah,
it
it would
is. Yeah,
be, yeah, okay. Okay, cool.
that's why. Yeah, psychology and philosophy for me. Yeah, especially
Hmm.
philosophy right now at the moment. I'm doing a
Yeah.
course with some students in French, and I was thinking about all a new way of looking at astrology through Gaston Bachelard. Do
Ooh,
you know?
I would love to be in that class. Yeah.
He
I'm not familiar with him, no.
a philosopher from the 20th century. He wrote books on the elements,
Hmm.
and well, philosophers in France, they would not like what I'm about to say, but he was a little bit of a Jungian philosopher.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's very special to my heart.
Very cool.
I think they are translated into English, I think.
Yeah,
At least there is one, Poetics of Space, it is called.
very cool.
So yeah, philosophy and what other,
Well, I think it's important to be poetic. I think
yeah,
one reason why Liz Green's got such long appreciation is that in her works, she always has a literary reference.
yes.
And she's even written fan fiction. I learned from someone that she wrote a book, a historical fiction about Nostradamus. So, being aware of the human imagination in fiction and literature, I think I'm required to say that because I do have a PhD in German literature. It's like being literate in literature allows you to understand the ways these astrological symbols can express
Hmm.
in the nouns and verbs without the astrological jargon, and it gives you
Yes.
exposure to the mixtures of
Hmm.
human experience that are described by what we would use astrology for as shorthand.
I have a
So,
thing with that, with the astrological jargon in consultations, because I always do so. I always use the jargon, but I explain what it is
yeah.
because I want people to learn astrology.
Yeah.
That's what I want them to do.
Yeah. Well, I love that you do that because it's almost like you're saying, that's my footnote. I'm giving you a sense
Yeah,
of where I'm getting this from so that you don't think I'm
absolutely.
just an intuitive or a psychic who's relying on that
Yeah,
instead of doing craft astrology?
so true. And that is something that is lacking in, of course, horoscopes in the magazines and articles in some kind in those magazines,
Yeah.
feminine magazines.
Yeah.
They don't go to the source, so they can tell us anything they want, and no one will know what it is about,
Yeah.
if
But
it's real
Channy's
or
really
not
good. I would say
astrology.
I want to praise my colleague Channy for always grounding horoscopes in the actual
Yeah,
transit or what is
yes,
being described. So
hmm?
it's like, oh, now I know what that means. Oh, cool. I'm actually slowly learning, but also I know that it's not coming from nothing. It's not just being made up,
Yeah,
you
okay.
know.
Mm.
Yeah.
So this is about in consultations, how do you approach sensitive issues or potentially difficult or challenging kind of transit progressions? How do you
So
approach that?
I'm an optimist, but that could be easily seen as spiritual bypassing. But I will say I don't attract clients who come to me with a lot of need for that kind of
Mm,
care. I
okay.
tend to attract clients interested in questions around entrepreneurship and their business and their art practice and things of that nature. So I haven't
Yeah,
had a
very
lot of
fire. Mm,
experience, yeah, with those moments. And I do find it challenging. And I'm actually signing up for the ESAR CAP ethics training and consultation skills training
mm,
to just brush up my own practice as well. I think it's important to acknowledge when that might not be a strength and go get some help in strengthening those muscles. So,
yeah.
in the moment, I would say like I've sort of been able to talk about the ways in which the difficulty can be seen as a positive,
Hmm.
but it's always tricky, right? It's
Yeah.
always depending on the person. Because the other thing about any consultation is that you think you're saying one thing and you have no control over what they're actually hearing.
Yes.
And they'll come back a year later and say, "Well, you
Yeah.
said this." And first of all, I
Yes.
don't remember. And second of all, I'm also like, "But I wouldn't say something like that. You
Yeah, so
heard
true.
that, but I didn't actually say that."
Yeah.
So it's actually always tricky in a way.
Mm. I have a lot of water, so I have, yeah, a lot of clients who come with some types of issues, but I know my limits. So I
Hmm.
will send them to um, real psychologists and therapists
Hmm.
to do that kind of work. But I do work with flower essences. And I started doing that
Oh,
from the beginning when I started, well, from the beginning when I started to be a professional astrologer. I always have done that. And yeah, it's something that it can help uh, the
yeah. I
person
love,
without
yeah,
being too, you know.
it's very subtle. Those are subtle
Yeah.
things. And I want to acknowledge that when you said what fields of knowledge have made me a better astrologer, I forgot to mention doing plant alchemy in the actual,
Mm.
like
Yep.
making tinctures with actual plants. It's not
Yes.
reading, but it's definitely, you're working with plant medicine and I've worked with plant medicine.
Mm.
So making, for example, a dream tincture then gets you in touch with your moon and the moon.
Yes.
And, understanding plant rulerships through planetary correspondence and such, and also paying attention to the life cycle of a plant year after year,
Mm.
that will make you an amazing astrologer. So I think I resonate with you on that addition of some plant magic with your
Yeah.
astrological practice.
Yeah. And yeah, it's also so how can I explain that? It's also bringing astrology to another context and speaking about astrology in another context of only what is going to happen to me, what it is, you know. So it is about feeling
Yeah.
astrology also,
Mhm.
and I think that flower essences help to be in the moment and to
Mhm.
um, feel the transits that you are going through and be in peace with them without wanting to let me just go to the end of this transit and it's all
Right.
over and all of that. And it's about, yeah, it's about creating with that energy. I feel
That's
it helps
awesome.
to do so.
Hmm.
So what do you prefer in astrology, the subjective experience or the technique, and why? And what is your favorite technique if you have any?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, now I have to admit I have a Libra stellium and I can't answer that question with just one answer.
No problem.
So I would say the question of subjective experience versus technique is at the heart of one of the angles in my PhD thesis that's now actually been translated and published in France. So you could
Yeah.
read it in French. But it's about the idea of experience versus experience. And in German, those are two different words. It's Erlebnis and Erfahrung. And that is it's like the lived experience of astrology versus knowing about how to do it. And I think you have to have both. You can't have one without the other. You can't prioritize one form of knowledge without the other. And the
Absolutely.
kind of knowing about something is very prioritized in this enlightenment or post-enlightenment world, but having your lived experience is discounted because it's seen as a more feminine kind of knowledge. But I think you have to have this map of experiencing it yourself and then also continuing to learn more techniques and then seeing again that how that experience happens for you, which will allow you to be able to help others. You know, if you don't have that lived experience, it's very difficult to give sage advice, you know.
Absolutely.
Not saying you need to go through all of the things, but
Mhm.
it takes time, I think, to really truly understand how to interpret what astrology is trying to say. And
Mhm.
that time is partly just being alive as a human and paying attention alongside your own chart.
Absolutely.
Um, so there, but I do love, my intellectual side loves thinking about the technique because to me that spills out into mathematical imagination and then
Mm.
also art. Like the next thing is art. So I
Yeah.
remember, you know, in your first master class, you talked about tapestry, and I'm just like, I'm literally beading with the zodiac right now. I'm creating a ceremonial headband for my husband, who's a Sangoma. He's been trained in South Africa, and it's showing the bounds of the zodiac. But the bounds are the stripes that are on this headband. So I chose 5 colors, one for each planet, and I'm making the entire zodiac that's going to be sitting on his head.
Mhm.
And I was just like so excited to hear, like, you guys want to do embroidery? I'm doing that now. And I've made a scarf out of zodiacal releasing, you know, so these
Isn't that
patterns.
what you were doing when on the Café Clutch that
Yeah, yeah, I was
already
showing you
started
guys that
down
stuff.
there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like I'm just, you know, I take these astrological patterns and I'm trying to translate them into other types of objects of art, right? This way of wearing it, creating jewelry out of it, ornament out of it, translating it through to a different way of perception. I've made sound with it, and I was
Mm.
in London in 2019 with a woman who knows how to do the sound part of it. I did the composing, so I created notes based off of the sun and the stars. And she went from that composition into actually creating the sounds that match those notes. And we
Isn't
just
that
played with
fascinating
interval.
when you
And
think
you can
about?
hear the heliacal rising of the stars, you know, with our composition. And it's so trippy, you can't drive. Like, it'll trance you out. Like, you can't
Oh,
drive.
yeah.
So I think the techniques to me are inspirational for the next leap, which is also why I
Mm.
called it celestial arts education, because it's about making art with what we're learning too. It's not just a matter of, you know, there's so many ways you can learn astrology now,
Yeah.
especially online, YouTube universities and all these things. You know, people just offer it so much for free. And I'm like, but let's take our ancestors' bequeathments to us on the technique level and then make art together out of
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Right.
I really do believe, and that's how I see astrology too, as a form of art. So yeah, I absolutely understand what
Yeah.
you
But a
um
favorite technique? I mean, I didn't tell you
yeah.
that it. The
No, you
favorite
didn't
technique?
tell me. Yeah.
The favorite technique I like to teach is triplicity rulers of the houses because
Okay.
that really clears up any fog on the window that people have when they're talking about how to interpret a chart. Suddenly they see things clearly. So I love
Mm.
teaching that one. But right now, personally, I love looking at converse progressions on the different time keys of secondary, tertiary, and minor
Mm.
because I like to look at the way time folds like a taco and you're like born, but you have the backwards time and forwards time. And there's a
Mm.
lot of things with quantum physics of like the future can affect the past. And I'm like, I know, there's math for that. Or, you know, various things like if you're healing, then you're healing your ancestors' line. And it's like, yeah, there's math for that too. And I also like thinking about things that are happening in the future in the ephemeris that are actually coming back now in this lived moment. And then
Yeah.
listening for stories of people when they say, yeah, there's this wonderful topiary artist who started getting lots of recognition when he was in mid-career. But if you read the biographies people write about him, you can see the progressed timescales like a skipping stone, going back
Mm.
earlier in his life of like, oh, of course that happened when he was 12. And then that happened when he was
Yeah.
24, you know, and you can just watch it. It's just really cool. So
Yeah,
that
there's
converse direction is like, yeah,
yeah, I also like to see those. Anyway, when I do a consultation, I always go back in time. It's something
yeah,
that sometimes surprises people because they think that astrology is only about looking into the future, but
yeah,
we can do nothing
right.
without looking back.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
that's cool.
And
Do you have a favorite technique? Have you said that on air yet?
um, I for me, in my personal practice, for me. to check, and I love Ferdaria. I
Okay, cool.
understood so many things in my life through the sections of the Ferdaria, and everything is there.
Amazing.
And then in consultations, I mostly use secondary progressions because, yeah, I love them also. Mm.
Very cool.
Um, so what boundaries do you set for yourself in a consultation, and what do you think is important for astrologers to know about boundaries when doing consultations? Maybe this comes to the other question I was um, asking you about yeah, the sensitive issues that come in the
Yeah.
in consultations or
Well, there's always a prepayment. I don't chase people down for money.
mm,
Like if they want to have time with me, then you book it and you calendarize. I don't schedule anything outside my calendar because I'm doing so many different things that if I go email back and forth, something's going to get lost in translation and it's not going to actually land. So there are people who are closer to me that are like, "Can I get on your calendar?" And I'm like, "Yep, like everyone else, go to the website, find a time that works for you,
yeah.
pay for it, and we're good to go." And then I'll get notified that the consults are of the day and I'll do my work and, go through the calendar. So I'm very strict about that on the front end, like if
Mm,
people want to do something with me, they really do have to go through that calendar because I optimize it for what's coming up, as different things shift. But I only want to think about that once. I don't want to spend all of my time
yeah,
going and looking and coming and
yeah,
looking because
yeah,
that just
yeah,
wastes all
losing
my time.
time, yeah, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
absolutely. And then in the consult, I'm usually pretty strict around the beginning and ending. Like I'll begin and then
Yeah,
we
that
end.
was
And if it gets
I was
close to
going
that
to
end, I'm
ask
going
you
to say,
about.
we're going to need to book more time to finish answering this. But I'm really good. I'm very efficient. Again, jet fuel, also fire hose. Like I'm very like information nutrient dense with people,
Hmm.
sometimes speaking quickly. So I have to watch out for that. But I'm really good at taking a lot of astrology and packing it into that time
Hmm.
slot. So people are tending to be very satisfied and they come back again and again every year. I also like to only see people once a year because I'm not doing psychological therapy. I'm doing astrological
Yeah.
counseling or consulting. So it's like, the information doesn't change enough for me to see that person every week. And if someone
Hmm.
wants to do that, I'm kind of net gently kind of like going back and listen to what we talked about. And,
Yeah.
I don't do lunar returns with people, so I don't need to see you every month.
Mm.
And part of that is just because I am operating more from the classical solar return mindset of
Yeah.
here's the data you need to know for
Mm.
now. These
Hmm.
are this is what you can expect. This is what you have to work with, right? And giving people that idea of like optimizing and taking advantage of the good moments and when to be a little bit wary of things that could be like a bit staticky. And then, yeah, if they have booked a location consult and start asking questions about the future, I tell them to book a different time. And we're not talking about forecasting because we're talking about location,
Mm.
right? So it's like if someone tries to sort of add something in that's
Yeah.
not there, but if
Hmm.
it's an hour-long consult, then they want to add location for a half an hour and mix it up that way, then I just adjust that. I don't make them
Yeah.
do anything crazy, but usually when people do that, they book extra time for the location side.
Hmm.
But if it's strictly a location consult, I don't talk about forecasting at all because I'm like,
Okay.
that's not what that work is. And if that's what they want, they have to, ask for that other.
Yeah.
So,
It's yeah. I have a lot of water, as I said, so
yeah.
I'm all over the place, I think.
Sure. Well, I think the other
But
thing too is with because of medieval techniques, you can actually a little bit like spy on other people in your life through your own chart because it's your vantage point on them. So sometimes when people say, "Well, can we just look at my kid's chart or my partner's chart?"
oh
I'm like,
yeah,
"No.
no, that
No.
I don't do.
No."
Also, no, no,
I'm like,
no,
"No,
no,
I
no,
can talk to you about what's
no.
going on with
Yeah,
them from your vantage
yeah,
point, but I'm not
yeah,
going to look at their chart because that's not what we're here for."
absolutely.
And if that's something they want to do, they can come to me or we can
Yeah,
do a
that's
couples
something that I
consult.
do. Also, I don't do astrology consultations for people who are not there in
Yeah,
front of me. I mean, I do
exactly.
everything by internet, but the person has to be there. And I don't do consultations also for people. Um, you have to be 18 years old or more to do
Oh, that's a
so.
good point. I've
I
never had
don't.
anyone try to book before or under that.
Yeah, but sometimes you have
Um,
parents who want to do consultations with for their kids' chart,
mhm,
and it's not something that, well, at least I don't feel comfortable doing so.
yeah. And it's a bit tricky too because there's not enough life under their belt for you to get
Yeah,
some of the fun tools to
yeah,
work.
absolutely.
Like
And the experience, it's a little bit difficult. So what was going on when you were 8? Well, I started school. I
right?
don't
Like,
know.
okay.
Okay. Um, which is important, of course, but yeah, maybe it's not um, a lot of subject there.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not the conversation you want to
yeah.
have. I think that's important.
So, what is the greatest satisfaction you get from your work as an astrologer? One or two things, maybe?
I love publishing.
Mm.
I really do. I love working
Research?
on w- the research is fun. I really love working with people to get their research permanently
Mm.
in print, to exist as a thing outside of them. Because a lot
Mm.
of people have books inside of them or articles
Mm.
inside of them, and there's a shyness to committing to print. And so I see one of my roles in the community is to listen and hear when there's a book happening. Like Wade Caves had been talking for ages ago about working on William Lilly's thing. And I'm like, the book's in public domain. Let's just write a forward and we can
Mm.
get you, a sort of new edition of Lilly out there. And he's like, oh, that can be that can happen. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Mm.
Or Philip Graves was writing a bunch of articles about the history of astrology. And then he and I sort of came up with this 4-volume plan for him to be like owning that topic and really displaying what he's been doing in his own research, so but it takes that kind of midwifing where people sort of they have an idea and they don't really know how to get it down into book form, and so I love that process of like taking something from just this concept and really seeing it come to fruit in print and you watch them change when they do that too. Like the true
Mm.
authority authorship, that line, like once you actually have something like a book,
Yeah.
it does change how you hold yourself in the world. And I like
Yeah.
seeing that process as well. I worked on a book for the Sophia Center Press called Sark in the Dark. It was Ada Blair doing research about the dark sky park called Sark in the Channel Islands. And I was like, I think we should be a little bit cheeky and just call it Sark in the Dark. And she's like, I love it. And you could watch her going from MA student to I wrote a book about this island. And it just like was so cool. So that's one of my favorite things is to see
Mm.
people ripen through the author process and be a resource for them to achieve that.
Yeah. I also have so many books in me with my Gemini moon, and now
Yeah.
Saturn and Neptune are entering my ninth house of
Okay.
Aries. So yeah, it has to happen in the next year in
Ah,
the next years, let's say it
send
in
some to
plural.
me. Send some of them to me.
Oh, so this is the last question. Are there any common misconceptions from your point of view about astrology that you would like to correct or highlight? This is a
Oh,
Scorpio question, sorry.
this is a huge question. Oh, I think that, like when you said astrology is an art, I think that is, through line that you'll probably find a lot of your guests chiming in with is that I love Patrick Curry's quote of astrology is not a deformed version of science and it's not, some kind of failed version of something else. It's fully
Mm,
itself.
yeah.
And alongside that, bringing in Nick Campion and Liz Green in their volume Astrology's Plurality and Diversity, astrology is often referred to as a singular noun, but it's actually describing multiple forms of practice of creating meaning with sky intelligence,
Mm,
sky data, sometimes not even actually fully celestial data either. So we have to think about it as a multiplicity.
mm,
And so when we think, oh, astrology is this, and you see these astrologers engaging in turf wars, it's like, hey, relax, soften your gaze, band together. We're all being discriminated against in general. Like, let's figure out how to tolerate each other's vantage point and understand each other's vantage point without having this internal conflict, break it
mm,
down before we even get to the outside world.
yeah.
So I think when we say astrology, that's whenever I teach a class, the first thing I say is it's multiple, and the
Yeah.
kind of astrology we're talking about here is this one, or
Mm,
the kind of astrology we're talking about today is going to be this new one you haven't heard
mm,
of yet, right? So I think if we can just all hold in our hearts that it's a multiplicity of practices
yeah.
and that it's itself. It doesn't need to be a science. It doesn't need to be an art even. It just needs to be astrology and it's valid
Mm,
enough to be itself.
yeah. That makes me think about the quote by a Portuguese writer, but he's very well known all around the world. It's Fernando Pessoa.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love him.
And he said that be plural like the universe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Only that. So yeah, astrology is
Yeah.
plural like the
Yeah,
universe.
exactly.
Okay, so thank you so much, Jenn. If there is, I would like to know what you are doing at the moment, or if sorry, if there's something coming in the
Yeah.
coming months. This podcast will be out in, so we are in November, late November. So I
Okay.
don't know if you have something coming in late
Well, there's
November,
something.
December, January.
Yeah, there'll be a talk with I think the Niagara Astrology Group in
Okay, in
February.
San
So that's like
Francisco.
far away. I think they're in New York.
Oh,
Or
okay.
maybe Canadian. Anyway, so that's something well in advance. But the thing that I think is most important to talk about is the Cayley Review, which is
Yeah,
the journal that is produced here. And
I have
we're
that
little.
one, the green one.
Oh, good. Yeah, they're all green. Actually, they're slowly turning blue.
Oh,
The
the other
2.1
one I
is
see
turning
it
blue.
blue,
Yeah,
the first
well,
one
there's
there.
four. This is five issues, right? So there's five different issues here.
Okay, so I have one
Um,
of those. I think it's the
yeah,
first one.
yeah. So there's five different issues here, but it's a periodical, a print journal, full color. You can subscribe to it. Kaylee has a Patreon now because we're trying to get, a lot of people are on Patreon. I resisted that for the longest time,
Mm.
but I thought to myself, you know what? Like people will find us through Patreon. It's where everyone goes. So you can subscribe to the Kaylee Review digitally or print on Patreon, and then there's other ways that you can support Kaylee. So that's really the main thing that I'm doing right now
Mm.
is I'm serving as the president of ESAR on the one hand, that's a volunteer position, but I'm also trying to build Kaylee and I need the community's support. So one thing you can
Yeah,
get for helping is a lot of really great literature
great,
that
right? Yeah, I loved it. I have the one with the article by Gray Crawford.
oh good. Yeah, that was about
It's the first
the
one,
pole
right?
star
Or
epoch.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
It's
Oops.
wonderful. So please,
Yeah, so you can
if
subscribe. It's only
yeah.
$8 for a digital subscription and $10 for a print
Oh,
subscription, the
there's
international
a
shipping.
digital
There's
subscription now.
digital now. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
because I had to um the postage to come to France. It was a little bit
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
So we're creating a digital subscription that's available through the
wonderful. I
Patreon.
will have to
So
check that out.
yeah, yeah, I hope everyone does. So,
So
the
everyone will
more,
check that out if you want to know more on astrology and support Kaylee. So thank
yay.
you so much, Jenn,
Thank
and
you.
talk to you soon.
Okay, see you soon. Thank
Anywhere
you.
in with this art, maybe.